The first hint that something was wrong came from the quantum fluctuation sensors in DARPA's underground laboratory. Dr. Sarah Chen was running her usual morning diagnostics when the readings spiked beyond anything she'd seen in 15 years of research. Her coffee mug slipped from her fingers, shattering on the polished floor as she stared at the impossible numbers climbing across her screen. "Dr. Martinez, are you seeing this?" She called out to her colleague, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. But before he could respond, the laboratory's emergency lights began pulsing red. The massive view screens that lined the lab's walls automatically switched to external feeds. What they showed made Sarah's breath catch in her throat. Above Washington, D.C., the sky was transforming. Reality itself seemed to tear open as massive shapes emerged from what appeared to be tears in space-time itself. They were ships, if you could call them ships. Their obsidian hulls seemed to drink in light rather than reflect it, creating patches of artificial night against the morning sky. Each vessel was perfectly geometric, like a mathematician's dream given physical form. As Sarah watched, more ruptures appeared across the globe. Rio, London, Beijing, Moscow, Delhi. Each major city found itself under the shadow of these cosmic titans. Military jets scrambled within minutes, their contrails crisscrossing the sky like desperate scratches on paper. Surface-to-air missiles arced upward, their paths precise and determined. But the alien vessels didn't even attempt to dodge. The missiles simply disappeared, meters from impact. The jet's weapons had no more effect than throwing pebbles at a mountain. "Sarah, look at this." Martinez's voice was barely a whisper as he pointed to his quantum readings. The energy signatures, they're perfectly synchronized across all vessels. It's like they're all one mind. Sarah finished, her fingers flying across her keyboard. The patterns were unlike anything in human experience, a level of uniformity that shouldn't be possible in nature. Every ship pulsed with exactly the same quantum frequency, down to the Planck scale. The first transmission came exactly 17 minutes after the arrival. Every screen, every phone, every device capable of receiving the signal displayed the same message. The voice was perfect, too perfect. It spoke in flawless English, yet utterly devoid of any emotion or inflection. "People of Earth, we are the Zarkax Unity. Your species has been identified as sufficiently advanced for incorporation. Your biological and technological distinctiveness will be added to our own. Your primitive individualism will be replaced with perfect harmony. Resistance is mathematically impossible. You have 24 hours to prepare your leadership for submission protocols." The message repeated in every known human language, each version as pristine as the first. But Sarah wasn't listening anymore. She was staring at something in the transmission data that made her hands shake with a different kind of emotion. Not fear, but excitement. "Dr. Martinez," she said, her voice barely containing her revelation, "look at how they're broadcasting. The quantum signature of their communication. It's absolutely uniform across all ships. Isn't that what we'd expect? They seem to value uniformity above all else." "Exactly." Sarah's fingers danced across her keyboard, bringing up comparative analyses. "But look at our quantum readings of human consciousness. Every human mind generates unique patterns, like fingerprints made of thought. The Zarkax, they've never encountered anything like us before. Their perfect unity might be their perfect weakness." Outside, the obsidian ships maintained their geometric formation, casting shadows over a world preparing for submission. But in a basement laboratory, illuminated by the red pulse of emergency lights, Dr. Sarah Chen began to formulate a hypothesis that would change the course of two civilizations. She just needed to prove it, and she had less than 24 hours to do so. The question was, would anyone listen before it was too late? Dr. Chen's footsteps echoed through the nearly empty halls of the Pentagon's underground levels. Most staff had been evacuated to bunkers, leaving behind a skeleton crew of essential personnel. 2 armed guards escorted her toward the Joint Chiefs Emergency Command Center, their faces grim under the fluorescent lighting. 5 minutes, Dr. Chen, General Harrison said as she entered the room. "We're a little busy preparing for the end of human civilization as we know it." The wall of screens behind him displayed real-time footage from around the world. Cities had erupted into chaos, some with riots, others with mass prayer gatherings. The Zarkak's ships remained motionless, their perfect formation unchanged since arrival. Sarah connected her tablet to the main display. "Sir, I believe I found something crucial about the Zarkak's communication system. Their quantum signatures." "Doctor," Harrison interrupted, "we've got the best minds on the planet looking at their tech. The Chinese tried an electromagnetic pulse. The Russians attempted a cyber attack. Nothing worked. These aliens are so far beyond us that..." "That's exactly the point." Sarah's voice rose, drawing stares from the military personnel around the room. She took a breath, steadying herself. "They're beyond us in technology, yes, but their advancement has come at a cost. Look at these patterns." She pulled up two wavelength displays. The left shows Zarkak's quantum communications. The right shows human brainwave patterns. "Notice anything?" The general squinted. "Theirs is more organized. Perfectly organized. Too perfect. We've been studying human consciousness at DARPA for years. Every human mind generates unique quantum patterns, but the Zarkaks, they're all identical. Their hive mind requires absolute uniformity, something that's never existed in human history." Harrison's expression remained skeptical. "And this helps us how?" "Their perfect unity might be their weakness. Human consciousness, with its chaos and creativity, could disrupt their entire network. We just need to..." "Enough." Harrison's voice was final. "Dr. Chen, we appreciate DARPA's efforts, but in 3 hours, the President will sign the surrender agreement. We're doing this to save lives." Sarah stood there, hands clenched, as the guards led her out. But she wasn't finished. Not by a long shot. In her lab, she found Martinez already making calls. "Julia Chen at MIT is in," he said, covering his phone. "She's got access to their consciousness research data." Sarah nodded, sending encrypted messages to contacts at universities and research centers worldwide. They had to be careful. The Zarkaks might be monitoring communications, but there were always backdoors, always ways for scientists to share information off the grid. "We need volunteers," she told Martinez. "People willing to be hooked up to EEG machines. The more diverse the thought patterns, the better." Within hours, a global underground network formed. Quantum physicists in Tokyo, neuroscientists in Berlin, computer engineers in Bangalore, all working in secret, all sharing data through encrypted channels, all racing against time. In her lab, Sarah studied the incoming results. Each human mind produced patterns as unique as snowflakes, beautiful in their complexity, impossible to perfectly replicate. Artists generated different patterns than mathematicians. Children's minds sparkled with creativity that adults had lost. Even identical twins showed distinct quantum signatures. "It's like a symphony," Martins mused, watching the patterns dance across their screens. "And the Zarkaks only know how to play one note." Sarah's phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "Username, Prometheus. We can help broadcast. Global reach. Say the word." She showed Martinez. "Hackers," he whispered. "They're offering to hijack the world's communication networks when we're ready." Sarah stared at her screen, then at the Zarkak ships visible through her laboratory window. The aliens thought humanity's greatest weakness was its lack of unity. They were about to learn how wrong they were. She typed back a single word. "Ready." The silent rebellion was about to become very, very loud. Sunset painted Washington, D.C. in shades of crimson and gold, the dying light casting long shadows beneath the hovering Zarkak's vessels. In her lab, Dr. Chen watched the time tick away on monitors filled with streaming data from around the world. Less than 12 hours remained until the scheduled surrender. "Connection established with Station 17," Martins announced, adjusting his headset. That's all 50 research stations online now. Their makeshift network spanned the globe. University labs, hospitals, even converted garages where scientists had jury-rigged EEG machines. Thousands of volunteers sat connected to monitoring equipment, their brainwaves feeding into Sarah's quantum analysis systems. "Show me the composite," she commanded, and the main screen filled with overlapping patterns, a visual representation of human consciousness in all its chaotic glory. Artists creating masterpieces, musicians composing songs, children dreaming, mathematicians solving equations, lovers saying goodbye, priests deep in prayer, each mind contributing its unique signature to the tapestry. A message flashed from their hacker allies. Broadcasting systems compromised and ready. Chinese firewall bypassed. Russian networks accessed. When you're ready, we can reach 97% of Earth's digital devices. Sarah's hands trembled as she typed back. "Stand by. Pattern isn't strong enough yet." Dr. Chen, one of her junior researchers, called out, "You need to see this. The Zarkak ships, their quantum field is fluctuating." The aliens' perfect synchronization showed microscopic variations, barely detectable but growing. Even their passive observation of human consciousness was affecting them. But it wasn't enough. They needed something more. Sarah's phone buzzed. A call from her sister in San Francisco. "The streets are crazy here," Lisa's voice crackled through. "Some people are having end-of-the-world parties. Others are in churches. Mom wants to know if you're coming home to say goodbye." Sarah closed her eyes, fighting back tears. "I'm close to something, Lisa. Tell Mom. Tell her I'm trying to save us all. Just be careful, okay?" The military's enforcing curfews now. They're saying it's to maintain order until the surrender. After hanging up, Sarah stared at the Zarkak ships through her window. Their obsidian surfaces reflected nothing, absorbed everything. Just like their hive mind. No room for deviation, for creativity, for the beautiful messiness of individual thought. "Sarah," Martinez's voice was quiet. "Look at the pattern when I do this." He adjusted the filtering algorithm, highlighting certain frequencies. Hidden in the chaos of human consciousness was a structure, not the rigid geometry of the Zarkaks, but something organic, like the growth pattern of a crystal or the spiral of a galaxy. "That's it," Sarah whispered. "We've been trying to match their power with raw energy, but we need to show them something they've never seen. Organic order emerging from chaos." Her fingers flew across the keyboard, recalibrating their broadcast pattern. "Tell the stations to focus on creative tasks. Musicians, play. Artists, create. Mathematicians, solve. Children, dream. Everyone else, think about what makes you uniquely human." The composite pattern shifted, becoming more complex yet more coherent, like a masterful symphony where every instrument played its own part, creating something greater than the sum of its parts. Outside, the Zarkak ship's formation wavered slightly, almost imperceptibly. Their quantum field fluctuated stronger now, struggling to maintain uniformity in the face of humanity's cognitive diversity. 4 hours until surrender, Martinez announced grimly. Sarah watched the pattern build on her screen, growing stronger as more minds joined the network. Humanity's last night of freedom was becoming its first night of true unity. Not the sterile uniformity of the Zarkaks, but a harmony of countless individual voices. She opened a channel to their hacker allies. "Begin broadcast preparations. When we hit them with everything." The pattern continued to build as the night deepened, a silent symphony of human consciousness preparing for its greatest performance. And in the darkness of space, the Zarkak's hive mind experienced something it had never known before: uncertainty. The Geneva Convention Center gleamed under the morning sun and the shadow of a Zarkak's vessel. Inside, world leaders gathered for what the media called the final summit. Security personnel swept the halls, their faces tight with resignation. In 2 hours, humanity would formally surrender its autonomy to the Unity. In her makeshift command center beneath DRPA, Dr. Chen watched the preparations through hijacked security feeds. Her team had worked through the night, their network now connecting millions of minds across the planet. The pattern had grown stronger than she'd ever imagined possible. Prometheus confirms they're ready, Martins reported, his voice hoarse from exhaustion. They've gained control of every major broadcasting system, satellite network, and digital billboard on Earth. Even the emergency alert systems are compromised. Sarah nodded, studying the quantum readings. The Zarkak ships showed increasing signs of instability, their perfect formation occasionally rippling like heat waves over hot asphalt. They can feel it coming, she whispered. They just don't know what it is yet. Her screen lit up with a message from General Harrison. Whatever you're planning, stand down. That's an order. We can't risk provoking them. She deleted it without responding. The time for caution had passed. Inside the convention center, delegates took their seats. The Zarkaks had chosen a human representative, a tall figure in flowing silver robes who moved with unsettling precision. Its voice, when it spoke, carried the same artificial perfection as all their communications. Your species' imperfection ends today, it announced to the assembly. You will know the peace of unity. Sarah's fingers hovered over her keyboard. Start the sequence, she commanded. Around the world, 50 research stations began their final preparations. Millions of volunteers connected to monitoring equipment focused their thoughts, their minds becoming instruments in humanity's last desperate symphony. The surrender ceremony began. On stages across the globe, human leaders prepared to sign simultaneous submission documents. The Zarkak's representative raised its hand in a gesture of acceptance. Sarah took a deep breath. Now, Martinez sent the signal to their hacker allies. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, every screen, speaker, and digital device on Earth switched on simultaneously. The carefully orchestrated pattern of human consciousness. Billions of unique minds thinking, dreaming, creating, loving, fearing, hoping, burst across all frequencies. The effect was instant and spectacular. The Zarkak's representative stumbled mid-gesture, its perfect posture faltering. Above every city, the massive ships shuddered. Their obsidian surfaces rippled like disturbed pools of water. Pattern holding steady, Martins reported, monitoring the quantum feeds. Their field is destabilizing. Through their broadcast, they sent not just random thoughts, but the full spectrum of human experience. Children's laughter, lovers' whispers, artists' inspiration, scientists' equations, poets' verses, musicians' melodies, a cascade of consciousness too complex for the hive mind to process. The Zarkak ships began to move erratically. Some drifted from their positions, their perfect formation dissolving. Others spun in place, their quantum fields fluctuating wildly. The representative in Geneva clutched its head, silver robes swirling as it staggered. Maintaining broadcast, Sarah announced, her voice steadied despite her racing heart. Secondary stations reporting successful penetration of their quantum field. The alien ship's response grew more chaotic. Beams of energy shot randomly into space. Some vessels collided with each other, their legendary coordination shattered by the invasion of human consciousness. In Geneva, the representative's artificially perfect voice cracked. What is happening to us? These thoughts, these feelings. Sarah watched through the feeds as the creature experienced something unprecedented in its species' history, individual awareness. Around the world, the same transformation rippled through the Zarkak's fleet. Unity gave way to diversity, uniformity to complexity. We did it, Martins breathed, staring at the readings. Their hive mind is fragmenting. But Sarah's expression remained focused. No, she said, watching the pattern shift. We didn't destroy them. We woke them up. And now comes the hard part, helping them understand what they've become. Above, the once perfect fleet danced in disarray, each ship now moving to its own rhythm in the light of Earth's sun. Chaos reigned in the skies above Earth. The Zarkak ships, once locked in perfect geometric formation, now moved like dancers learning to walk for the first time. Some spun in graceful arcs, while others jerked erratically, their obsidian surfaces flickering with pulses of previously unseen color. In DARPA's command center, Dr. Chen and her team worked frantically to analyze the cascade of data pouring in from their global network. The quantum readings were unlike anything they'd ever seen, patterns of consciousness evolving and fragmenting in real time. "Look at this," Martinez called out, pointing to his display. "Each ship is developing its own unique signature. It's like watching 1,000 different personalities being born at once." Through their monitoring systems, they could hear fragments of Zarkak's communications. Gone was the perfect, unified voice. Instead, a cacophony of individual expressions burst across all frequencies. "What is this sensation? I think I'm afraid. These colors, I never knew there could be so many feelings. Are these memories? But they're only mine." Sarah watched as several ships descended toward major cities, no longer in threatening formation but moving with almost childlike curiosity. Military forces worldwide remained on high alert, but the aliens showed no signs of hostility, only confusion and wonder. "Dr. Chen," a voice called from the communication station. "We're getting requests for contact from multiple vessels. They want to talk." A message flashed across her screen from a ship hovering above Washington. "Help us understand. Please, everything is different now. We are different now." Sarah's hands trembled as she opened a channel. "This is Dr. Sarah Chen. We're here to help you transition. You're experiencing individual consciousness for the first time. Try to stay calm." Calm. The response came with something that sounded almost like laughter. "We feel everything now. Joy, fear, curiosity, loneliness. How do you humans bear it?" Through the monitors, Sarah watched as some Zarkak ships began attempting to communicate with each other in new ways. Instead of the perfect synchronization of their hive mind, they were learning to share experiences, to listen, to disagree, to question. "Major energy spike," Martinez shouted suddenly. On their screens, one of the largest ships above Moscow began pulsing with intense light. They're trying to force a reconnection to the hive mind. Some of them can't handle the separation. Sarah quickly broadcast across all frequencies. "Don't fight the individuality. Let it flow naturally, like water finding its own path. You're not losing yourselves. You're finding yourselves." The ship's energy readings gradually stabilized. Across the globe, other vessels that had shown signs of distress began to calm. The Zarkaks were learning to balance their new individual awareness with their inherent need for connection. Hours passed as Sarah's team worked to help the aliens navigate their transformation. They shared techniques for handling emotional overwhelm, explained the concept of personal boundaries, introduced the idea that disagreement didn't have to mean conflict. "Dr. Chen," a new voice came through, different from the others. It belonged to the former representative in Geneva. "We came to correct what we saw as humanity's fatal flaw, your individuality. We now understand it as your greatest gift, but we need your help. We don't know how to be persons." Sarah smiled, watching the ships above continuing their elegant, chaotic dance. "That's the beauty of it," she replied. "None of us really know. We figure it out together, day by day. That's what it means to be human." On her screen, the quantum readings showed something remarkable. The Zarkak ships were developing stable individual patterns while maintaining a looser, more organic form of connection. Not the rigid unity of before, but something more like harmony in music, where different notes combine to create something greater than themselves. "Martinez," Sarah called out, "send word to all stations. Tell them to prepare for Phase 2. We're going to teach the Zarkaks how to dance." Above, the alien ships continued their newfound exploration of existence, their obsidian surfaces now reflecting Earth's light in countless unique ways. 48 hours after what the media had dubbed the awakening, Dr. Chen stood in a hastily constructed meeting room within DARPA's facility. The space had been modified to accommodate their unusual guests, 3 Zarkax individuals who had chosen to leave their ships and attempt direct communication. They were tall, their silvery skin reflecting light in ways that seemed to defy physics. But what struck Sarah most was how differently each one moved. Gone was the perfect uniformity that had marked their species. One shifted constantly, like a curious child. Another stood almost perfectly still, observing everything with intense focus. The third made flowing gestures as it spoke, as if testing its own ability to move independently. "We have chosen names," the animated one announced, its voice carrying traces of excitement that would have been unthinkable days ago. "I am calling myself Echo, because every thought now creates ripples of new thoughts." The still observer inclined its head. "Nexus, for I find myself drawn to connecting different ideas." Its voice was softer, contemplative. The third moved its hands in a graceful arc. "Area, because human music shows how individual notes create harmony, like we must now learn to do." Sarah nodded, hiding her amazement at how quickly they were grasping concepts of metaphor and personal identity. Behind her, Martinez kept careful readings of their quantum signatures, each one now as unique as a human's. "There is disagreement among our people," Nexus said, the word disagreement carrying a weight of newfound significance. "Some embrace this change. Others fear it. A small number attempt to rebuild the hive mind." "That's normal," Sarah assured them. "Humans disagree all the time. It's how we grow, how we find new solutions." Echo moved closer, its silvery features reflecting the room's lights in constantly shifting patterns. "But how do you maintain unity without uniformity? Already our ships orbit in different formations. Some seek contact with humans, others wish to maintain distance. We have no protocols for this chaos." "Perhaps that's exactly what you need to learn," Sarah suggested. "Not everything needs a protocol. Sometimes the best discoveries come from improvisation." As if to demonstrate, Area began humming. Actually humming. A melody it had heard during the consciousness broadcast. The sound was hauntingly beautiful, though slightly off-key. Echo turned in surprise, then joined in with a complimentary tone. Nexus watched them both, its quantum signature pulsing with what Sarah's instruments identified as joy. "We receive transmissions from many of your people," Nexus said after the impromptu musical moment ended. "They are afraid we will still conquer them, now that we can think independently. They fear this is a new strategy." Sarah considered this. "Can you blame them? 3 days ago, you were going to absorb our civilization into your unity. 3 days ago, we were blind." Area responded, its hands dancing in the air. "We saw your independence as a flaw to be corrected. Now we understand it was our own uniformity that was flawed. But how do we prove this to your people?" Before Sarah could respond, Martinez called out from his monitoring station. "Dr. Chen, you need to see this. The Zarkax ships, they're reconfiguring themselves." On the main screen, they watched as the massive vessels began to transform. Their perfect geometric shapes were shifting, each ship taking on unique characteristics. Some developed spiraling patterns that mimicked Earth's natural formations. Others created surfaces that played with light in new ways. Each vessel was becoming as individual as its occupants. "It is our first art," Echo explained, pride evident in its voice. "We are making our outer forms match our inner selves." Sarah watched in awe as the once uniform fleet became a gallery of floating sculptures, each one a unique expression of its crew's emerging identity. This, she realized, was how they would prove their transformation to humanity, not through words or promises, but through the universal language of creative expression. "I think," she said slowly, "we're going to need artists and philosophers as much as scientists for what comes next." Above them, the sky had become a canvas for a civilization, learning to paint with light and shadow for the first time. 3 months after the awakening, The United Nations had been transformed into an unprecedented forum for human-Zarkax cooperation. The main assembly hall now featured floating quantum displays and geometric structures that adapted to the speaker's emotions, a merger of both species' communication styles. Dr. Chen stood at the podium, presenting her latest findings to a mixed audience of human leaders and Zarkax representatives. Each alien delegate now displayed distinct characteristics. Some had developed color-changing patterns on their silver skin. Others had adopted unique geometric modifications to their forms. The integration of Zarkax quantum technology with human consciousness research has opened doors we never imagined, Sarah explained, gesturing to the data streams floating above her. We've discovered that both our species' minds operate on similar fundamental principles. We just evolved to express them differently. Echo, now serving as the lead Zarkax cultural liaison, moved forward with fluid grace that would have been impossible in its previous unified existence. Dr. Chen speaks truth. We sought to eliminate humanity's chaos because we feared it. Now we understand that chaos and order are not opposites, but partners in a dance we have forgotten how to perform. From her position, Sarah could see Martinez working with a team of human and Zarkax scientists at a side console. They were developing new forms of communication that combined the precision of the alien quantum network with the creative flexibility of human expression. However, Sarah continued, her voice growing serious, we face challenges. A faction of Zarkax, particularly those from the outer colonies, still attempts to restore the hive mind. They see individual consciousness as a disease rather than an evolution. The assembly stirred uneasily. Everyone remembered the incident last week when 3 ships had attempted to force a reconnection to the old Unity network. The resulting quantum backlash had nearly driven their crews mad before Earth's combined human-Zarkax response team could help them stabilize. Area, its form now adorned with flowing patterns that shifted like music made visible, joined Sarah at the podium. We must understand their fear. Imagine living your entire existence as part of a perfect whole, then suddenly finding yourself alone in your own mind. Some of our people experience this isolation as trauma. But that's just it, Sarah responded, pulling up new data streams. They're not alone. Look at these patterns. The display showed the quantum signatures of Earth's populated areas. Billions of overlapping consciousness patterns forming intricate, ever-changing mandalas of thought and emotion. Humans maintain their individuality while building connections through art, music, literature, science, all the things that make up culture, she explained. You don't need a hive mind to have unity. You need understanding, empathy, and the willingness to bridge differences. The assembled delegates watched as she overlaid the patterns of the successfully integrated Zarkax communities. Their quantum signatures had developed a fascinating hybrid structure, maintaining individual uniqueness while creating voluntary dynamic connections with others. We're calling it harmonic consciousness, Martinez added from his station. It's a new form of connection that preserves individual identity while allowing for deep, meaningful sharing of experiences. Echo moved to the center of the hall, its form casting ever-changing shadows. When we came to Earth, we thought we were perfect. Our unity was absolute, our purpose clear. But we were like a single note played eternally, pure but empty. Humanity showed us that true perfection lies in improvisation, in the courage to be beautifully imperfect. Sarah watched as the quantum displays reflected the emotional resonance of Echo's words. Around the hall, humans and Zarkax alike were learning to see themselves in each other. 2 species on different paths to the same profound truth about consciousness and connection. The next phase begins tomorrow, she announced. Voluntary quantum integration between willing human and Zarkax participants. Not to create a new hive mind, but to build bridges of understanding between our species. Above the hall, the New York sky was filled with transformed Zarkax ships, each one now a unique expression of its crew's emerging identity. They no longer blocked the sun but danced with its light, creating ever-changing patterns that symbolize the ongoing transformation of both civilizations. 5 years after the awakening, Earth had become unrecognizable, yet more itself than ever before. Zarkak ships no longer hovered as invaders, but docked in specially designed spaceports that spiraled into the sky like crystalline flowers. Their transformed hulls played with light and shadow, each vessel a unique work of art that reflected its crew's journey from unity to individuality. Dr. Sarah Chen stood in her new laboratory at the International Consciousness Institute, watching a group of human and Zarkak's children play in the quantum-enhanced garden below. The alien children, once born into perfect uniformity, now displayed distinct personalities. One created shifting geometric patterns in the air, while another attempted to mimic human laughter, its silver skin rippling with joy. "Still hard to believe sometimes, isn't it?" Martins asked, joining her at the window. His console displayed readings from the Global Harmonic Network, the voluntary quantum web that connected participating members of both species while preserving their individual consciousness. "Remember when we thought we were fighting for humanity's survival?" Sarah smiled, touching the window. "Instead, we were midwives to the birth of something entirely new." The Institute itself was a testament to this transformation. Its architecture combined human organic design with Zarkak's geometric precision. Quantum fields allowed for instantaneous communication and shared experiences, while carefully maintained privacy protocols ensured each mind remained sovereign unto itself. Echo, now Earth's chief Zarkak's ambassador, emerged from a transmission field nearby. Its form had evolved dramatically over the years, incorporating patterns inspired by human art, while maintaining its essential alien nature. "The outer colonies have finally accepted the change," it announced. "The last attempts to restore the old unity have ceased." Sarah nodded, remembering the challenges they'd faced. Some Zarkaks had initially retreated to deep space, attempting to maintain their hive mind isolation. But one by one, they'd returned, drawn by the stories of what their species had become. "We received another 1,000 applications for the exchange program," Martins added, scrolling through his data. The program allowed humans and Zarkaks to temporarily share consciousness under controlled conditions, leading to unprecedented breakthroughs in art, science, and philosophy. Through the window, they watched as one of the Zarkak's children discovered it could create musical tones by modulating its quantum field. A human child joined in with actual singing, their different forms of expression weaving together in spontaneous harmony. "That's what saved us, in the end," Echo observed. "Not weapon or strategy, but the ability to create something new. We came to erase humanity's chaos, but instead, humanity taught us to dance." Sarah's instruments picked up a familiar signal, the daily transformation of the orbiting Zarkak's fleet. As the sun set, each ship began its unique light performance, their once uniform hulls now creating astronomical art that could be seen from the ground. Humans gathered in parks and on rooftops to watch what had become known as the Evening Symphony. "The thing is," Sarah said, watching the display, "we're still falling. Both our species, falling into new ways of being, new forms of consciousness, new possibilities we couldn't have imagined 5 years ago." "Falling upward," Echo agreed, its form shimmering with complex emotions that would have been impossible in its previous existence. "Each day, we learn more about what it means to be individual together." Above them, the Evening Symphony reached its crescendo. Millions of minds, human and Zarkaks alike, shared in the experience while maintaining their unique perspectives. It was neither the perfect unity of the old hive mind, nor the complete independence of traditional human consciousness, but something gloriously in between. "So," Martins asked, "what do we fall into next?" Sarah watched as another group of Zarkak ships emerged from deep space, their hulls already beginning to transform as they approached Earth. In the garden below, the children continued their improvised concert, neither species leading or following, but creating something that could only exist through their differences. "We fall into tomorrow," she answered. "Together, separately, perfectly imperfect." just as we always have. The sky above continued to dance with light, a constant reminder that the greatest victories often come disguised as defeats, and that sometimes falling is just another word for learning to fly.